everyone, and welcome to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
No, my name is Mike Piwowarski. I am your co-host from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most. I'm your co-host with the most here on The Rundown. Like Craig said, we bring you 2A news, conservative views on this Freedback Friday edition of The Rundown.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, folks, if you're watching us, however you are watching us, please take a moment, like and share. And by the way, join in the conversation. We're able to follow your messages. However you are replying to us, we'll be able to follow it. So go ahead, check in, say what's up. Let us know that you are there and that you are watching. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, whether you're watching us on Spotify or Opslands, please make sure to hit us up. Even if you're listening, if you're listening to us on podcast, we're not exactly live, but it still would be good to know that you're out there. So please let us know that you're enjoying the program. And once again, encourage your friends to do the same. Uh-oh. Looks like we lost your we lost your sound there, Mikey. But for some reason, I don't know what is going on, but we lost your sound. I'm sure you will get it figured out here real quick. Anyway, folks, moving on to today. Today, once again, is Freedback Friday. We always have a good time here on Freedback Friday, talking with you guys about whatever. But we actually have some very interesting special stuff going on here going on in the news today. Let's see here. The first story. Matter of fact, why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and just go on and get into our first story here? Our first story has to do with, you guys, if you guys have been paying any attention, you probably remember that Biden, it wasn't introduced by Biden. It was actually something that was introduced kind of, I'll just say accidentally. Here, I'll play the video for you where the misinformation Bureau was introduced. Let me load up this video here for you, and then we'll get a chance to watch it real quick.
Mr. Secretary, who's Nina Jankowicz?
She is the newly appointed individual in our Office of Policy in the Department of Homeland Security. And
is she the new executive director of the Disinformation? Is she the new executive director for Disinformation Governance Board?
She is the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board.
And is this the same individual who said the dossier was real and the Hunter Biden laptop story was false? Is that the individual who's now running the Disinformation Governance Board?
I'm not familiar with those statements.
Been reported widely.
So, Mike, there's this new board, right? It's the Disinformation Bureau. Had you heard of this before this testimony?
No, this sounds like one of those Monty Python skits. I don't know how that's a real place. That's the disinformation campaign. Come on. Can that be real? Is that real?
Well, no, it's a bureau. Now, the funny part, as a matter of fact, here, I'll show you here. It was actually reported. This right here is the New York Post. They're actually reporting on the fact that people are slamming Biden for this. And I'll tell you one of the main reasons. There's two reasons why they're slamming Biden for this. The first, Mike, is that no one, at least most people in public, no one announced that this disinformation bureau or board ever existed. No one knew that it existed.
You know, it's amazing. I can see how they work, Craig. Evidently, that story back up there, as you just have with the New York Post, it's discussing the disinformation campaign, and it has to do with evidently a baby duck. It looks like
feeding a baby duck. Spoon feed you disinformation.
It's a duck fish of some sort, and there you go. That's what we got.
All right. So now, and that kind of leads me to the second reason why this is odd. Is the person who actually is running it, Nina Jankowicz. Now, Nina Jankowicz is she is a master or a mistress of disinformation only because she's so good at spreading it, right? Oh, I love that image right there. And it comes from here. I'll show you this right here. This is what's interesting. So, for example, this is a tweet where she basically talked about Hunter Biden's laptop being misinformation, basically trying to dispel it before the election, right? But Mike, what do we know about the Hunter Biden laptop?
It's real, and that a copy of its contents has been entered into the congressional record by Congressman Matt Gaetz. We know it's
Now,
real.
there may be some reality to it in that maybe the Russians did pay for it in the millions of dollars that they kicked down to Mr. To Mr. Hunter Biden, but it was not a piece of Russian disinformation, as she has tried to put out. And what's even worse, Mike, what's even worse about it is that she actually went even further in some of her comments, and she basically has just made it clear that in her belief is that most, if not all, disinformation or misinformation comes from the right, and it doesn't really matter if the things that she identifies as misinformation or disinformation have in fact turned out to be true. They're not. I mean, they're not disinformation. I mean, what are just? Let's think about just a couple of the things that she's put out there. Yeah, Mike, I hate to do this, man, but I'm not getting any sound from you. Okay. So Mike's going to check out and check back in. We are going to figure out what our sound issues are. It should not take too long for Mike to get back to us. But yeah, I mean, how do you get to be the mistress of misinformation or disinformation if you didn't see, I don't know, the origins of coronavirus? If the fact that it wasn't at least credible that it came from the Wuhan lab, if you didn't see that as disinformation? How about this one? Russian collusion, right? We all know that Russian collusion is nothing more than misinformation or disinformation. We know that the Steele dossier, well, yeah, that was fake. We know that it was paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign. We know that to be a fact. All right, that's not even up for debate anymore. We know that there was a Russian asset. Most of the information that came from it, most of the background information that came from it, came from a guy who we knew was a Russian spy. That's right. Hillary Clinton paid for a dossier filled with information largely from a Russian spy, and yet Donald Trump was the one who was accused of misinformation or disinformation. That is the person right there who is running the new Bureau of Misinformation / Disinformation. I find it incredibly odd. I find it odd that this is a person who they would allow or even consider to be able to run a department like this. But hey, then again, I guess I am not the only one, because my good friend Mr. Gutfeld, he actually kind of felt the same way.
Happy Thursday, my wonderful partners in life. So great news. As the border dissolves like a sandcastle on the beach, inflation soars and crime runs rampant, what's the Department of Homeland Security consumed with? I'll give you a hint. It ain't Homeland Security. It's what you have to say about them and their failures. Apparently, they're as thin-skinned as Nancy Pelosi's eyelids.
Ooh.
Yesterday, in a hearing on immigration, that bald fellow with the adorable ears announced a Disinformation Governance Board in order to combat online misinformation. Because the real problems we face, apparently, are our opinions, not our incompetent actions. It's like blaming fires on the fire department. I mean, they always seem to be around right after I start one.
A just recently constituted misinformation, disinformation governance board. So we're bringing, the goal is to bring the resources of the department together to address this threat.
Fun fact, he had hair like Fabio before he worked with Kamala Harris. And why does he remind me of this guy? I just want to squeeze his head like a pastry bag filled with whipped cream. And that would be the beginning. Well, I hope they found a good person to head up the board, someone who can tell the difference between real and fake, who can objectively judge evidence and refrain from making snap decisions without any proof. Oh, it's Nina Jankowicz. She's directing the board. I wouldn't trust her to direct a Pauly Shore movie. She just shared her official government portrait on her social media profile. Cat's out of the bag, she said. But really, whoever picked her had to be half in the bag to select this doofus. She's further to the left than the green monster at Fenway. The baseball reference, Cat. I know my sports. In case you're unaware, Jankowicz had questioned the validity of Hunter Biden's laptop early on, actually calling it a Trump campaign product, which raises some questions. One, how is she an expert? And two, you got to be kidding me. How could she even qualify for this job if she got that wrong? Oh, I forgot. We're talking about a Biden administration job. What are they going to do next? Put Kamala in charge of the southern border?
Okay, that was a good one. That was a good one. But yeah, so clearly they have made it a point that they're not interested in having someone who's really qualified in the truth, in actually identifying if something is in fact false information. Kind of like reminds me of the Facebook fact checkers, where they had to admit in court that, yeah, no, our fact checkers, it really has nothing to do with facts. It's all about opinion. And that's their perspective. And quite frankly, well, that's what they're going with. Anyway, c'est la vie. That's what we get from them. Now, the funny part is this, and what I'm hoping or wondering if they realize is that if this department is still around when, let's say a Republican gets elected, especially if that Republican is, say, Donald Trump, I wonder if they're going to be concerned. Well, first of all, you're going to see all sorts of people they are going to be raising Cain if a Donald Trump would have done something like this, or if a Republican comes in and actually institutes or starts to use this sort of office to go after real misinformation and disinformation. And quite frankly, because that's what they're guilty of. And they're not interested in the truth. We know that they're not interested in the truth, and that is a sad fact, a sad reality of life. But there you go. All right, we're going to move on to our next story. More from Meadows messages. That's right. So the January 6th committee basically got over 2,300 text messages from Mark Meadows, who was at the time of on January 6th, who was the chief of staff to the president. Now, their goal in getting these text messages was supposedly to try and get information and identify collusion. Right? Their whole goal in it was, we're going to try and identify where there was not so much collusion, but we want to identify where they were involved and engaged in fomenting the insurrection. Right? So they keep bringing up people who text messaged Mark Meadows. Now, mind you, many of them are politicians, or related to politicians, or, well, for example, Justice Clarence Thomas's wife was one of the people whose messages have been revealed. Tucker Carlson, Don Jr., the entire Trump family, and now their target is Sean Hannity. All right, so now they're saying that Sean Hannity stands out because they're saying of the 2,300 messages, he had over 82 messages. Now, mind you, this is not on the day of. This is from Election Day all the way up to January 6th. And what's funny is in this thing, they're like, well, he's advising Trump or he's seeking direction, acting like there's this mass coordinated effort between him and the White House to spread disinformation. Now, the oddest part about it is, in there, he starts off talking about, he's going back and forth with Meadows about the information about the investigations about the investigations regarding the elections. And he's saying, no, I agree. Maybe we need to look, we cannot allow this election to be stolen, yada, yada, yada. As it went on, and as court losses mounted, and it started to become more and more obvious that this was not going to be overturned by the courts. Well, most of the cases were turned down because of standing, not because there wasn't enough information or data. But Mike and I will have those debates at another time. But a lot of it was anyway. But what's funny is that he started to get to the point where he's like, look, you guys got to show your evidence, yada, yada, yada. You guys can't be acting like wackos, because there were some people, even people who legitimately were arguing that there were issues with elections, because there were issues with a number of elections. We know this. We know this now because we are a lot further removed from it. But we know that there were problems. All right, you know this, I know this. But yet and still, but he's still saying, look, we need the data. It's got to be out there, because we can't, by the way, we can't be acting like crazies about it. So in no way was there any evidence that he was doing anything to try and collude or be involved with fomenting what was going on at the Capitol. And in addition, he showed outrage and talked about outrage. He was outraged by what was going on. Look, my whole point is that this is a fishing expedition, because this is exactly what the January 6th committee wanted. What they wanted were these messages, because they were hoping, they were praying that there was something that they could put out into the media that would embarrass conservatives, right? That's what they were looking for, right? They were hoping and praying, just like these messages, these phone calls that are coming out with Mike McCarthy. They're looking for stuff to embarrass Republicans. Because they really don't have anything else. There is no way that they are going to be able to prove in any way that the president or any of his staff or anyone related to him was involved in what happened on January 6th. But they're also, now, and at the same time, they're also not spending any time looking into Nancy Pelosi, looking into the decisions that were made to not have the National Guard there. Even though offers were made by the president, she decided that that was not going to happen, right? Even though the Capitol Police wanted it to happen, she decided it wasn't going to happen. So we all know that this is all false information. We know this. And once again, they're going to continue the big lie, not the big lie of the election. That's what they call the big lie. But we know what the big lie is. The big lie is that, Bush colluded to try and steal the election, right? That's the lie. First it was he stole the 2016 election, colluding with the Russians. And then in this case, he fomented a riot in order to try and overturn the election. Those are the big lies that in the end, history is going to prove. History is going to show that the Democrats are guilty of, and mainstream media is guilty of. So maybe we do need this Bureau of Dis and Misinformation. And I don't say misinformation is simply getting it wrong. Disinformation is when you just flat out lie. And that, my friends, is what we're looking at here. We're looking at folks who have just flat out lied. And I'm not talking about the president, by the way. Okay, moving right along. Okay, this is a cool one. All right, in Los Angeles County. First of all, in California, when you guys hear about all the woke district attorneys, all of the Soros-elected district attorneys throughout the country, California is rife with them. We have more than our fair share. In particular, two of the biggest cities in California, the city of San Francisco has Chesa Boudin, and the city of the county of Los Angeles has George Gascon. And both of them, by the way, are currently the subjects of recall elections. And basically saying that, look, they're not doing their jobs, because in their cases, they have decided that there are first of all, they're not going to prosecute any misdemeanors. And even some felonies, they're not going to enforce. You have the case in the case of Gascon. You have the case where he literally let a guy who molested a child molester. He let them out basically after basically just a few years or a few months in prison, because it happened when they were 17. And since they were 26 when they were finally caught, they said, well, they were a minor when it happened, so we're only going to treat them like they were a minor. And that's what wound up happening. And by the way, this person knew there was a phone messages came out. They knew that this guy had done it. They knew he did it flat out. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention transgender. So they knew she did it when she was a he. So they knew they did it. And they knew they were going to get off. And guess what happened? They, in fact, got off. Anyway, all that having been said, there's a recall election against George Gascon. And for the first time in history, folks, this is a first time, in this city's history. Okay, let me clarify. In this city's history, but this is a pretty big deal. When you have a city pass a resolution to have a local elected, another local elected, a fellow local elected removed from office via a recall. Folks, this is a pretty big deal. I mean, they're like, okay, look, you don't deserve, basically what they're saying is, you're supposed to help keep our county safe. Because keep in mind, even if you are a city, even if you have your own police department, everything is prosecuted through the county DA. If the county district attorney is not going to enforce the law, is not going to charge people, is not going to put people in jail, then it really is kind of pointless for you to try and enforce the law, for you to be arresting people. It definitely makes your community unsafe. So the city of Clarita voted, and I believe, hold on, let me scroll down here, make sure it was unanimous. Yeah, the vote came nearly a year after City Council voted, voicing displeasure. Here we go. It was a 5-0 vote from the Santa Clarita City Council to remove, or to not to remove, but to recall, or to support the recall effort of one Mr. Gascon. So, dude is out. Or at least it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get back in office. Just saying. Not saying, just saying. I don't know what else to tell him, but good luck to him. Good luck to him. All right. Okay. Here's one. Now, this one specifically affects a couple of issues that we've talked a lot about over the last year. And it has to do with both COVID-19 relief, and the use of COVID funds. And by the way, the use of said funds. There is a report that is now out that California, New York, Illinois, all Democrat states, used COVID-19 relief funds to push critical race theory in schools. Now, one has to wonder, what does this have to do with critical race theory? Why is COVID-19 dollars, why are they being utilized in order to push COVID-19? Well, as it says here in the story, the American Rescue Plan, which they put passed in 2021, part of it was supposed to go for the reopening of schools. However, the law provided $122 billion for elementary and secondary education relief in order to help us implement, once again, implicit bias or anti-racism training. Well, in many places, that training that took place, now this was of staff and teachers, that training included aspects of, I won't say as a whole critical race theory, but it included aspects of critical race theory. How do I know this? Because it happened in the district where I am a board member of. When they came to us and they said, hey, we had always been doing as a part of our board what we called resiliency training, which is more kind of a helping people from one community, helping people understand the communities and understand the diversity of the students in which they're teaching so that they can provide the most effective environment in the classroom. So we had always been doing this. Well, we brought in a new trainer that was going to be implementing some of this stuff. That was going to be doing some implementing. And when we were first approached, I made it very clear. I said, these are things that I am concerned about. I need to know that these things they're not going to be included in what our staff is going to be taught. And I was assured by them that, well, no, that's not what this is. That's not what this is. And then sure enough, aspects of it, things like, here's the thing. When you start hearing buzzwords, there are buzzwords that you're going to hear. Things like white privilege, Things like equity. Equity is, by the way, a huge buzzword for critical race theory or social justice theory. And equity and equality, they like to use the word equity because it sounds like equality, but it's not. Okay, it's not the same thing. Equality is I treat you the same. You get the same as I get, right? Equity, as described by them or described in critical race theory, is providing to people according to their needs. So in other words, if someone needs more, they should get more, right? They should get more assistance. And in education, we already kind of do that. If a student is behind, we provide more assistance to that student in order to help them get up to grade level, right? Based on their need. The problem is with critical race theory or social justice theory is that the person in need is determined to be in need simply because they are a part of a group. So, in this case, simply because you are black, you must need more. So, therefore, you will get more. You will get an advantage simply because the color of your skin, because it is assumed under critical race theory that if you are black, you are oppressed. It is also assumed that if you're white, you don't really need it because you're the oppressor. Anyway, so you know this is happening. And now it's been determined that it's not just happening in California. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Illinois. It's happening in a ton of places. Now, mind you, this is starting off with just the teachers, right, and the staff. And many staff are standing up and they're speaking up against it. And as our staff was going through the training, as we were going through the training, I can guarantee you this because it was done on Zoom. I spoke up, more than once, probably a lot more than my fellow board members felt comfortable with me speaking up and denouncing some of the things. But it was also quite necessary. And anyway, so when it was continued, it was put up to a vote. I was the lone vote against it, unfortunately. But it was made voluntary. So the only staff who had to go through it were staff who wanted to go through it. So if you want to learn how to, be ashamed of being white and you're a white person, you were allowed to do it. If you wanted to learn how oppressed you are as a person of color, you were allowed to do that. But you were not forced to do it. It was not mandated for anybody to do it. But we're still fighting it. And by the way, it is still, in fact, taking place in districts throughout the country, throughout California, New York, Illinois. And the next phase, I'm just going to tell you right now, is they want to implement it in the schools. They want to put it into the curriculum. And that is going to be a no-no. But my biggest question is, what does any of this have to do with what does any of this have to do with COVID? I have no idea what any of this stuff has to do with COVID. It's got nothing to do with it. It makes absolutely no friggin' sense. And it looks like we've got my good friend Mike back to talk with us a little bit about it, but I got to get him plugged in here real quick. I got to assign it. Bam. Mikey, welcome back. And I still don't have any sound from you, man.
Just kidding. Can you hear me?
All right. So, hey, we made it all the way up to the story on critical race theory on California, New York, and Illinois using COVID-19 relief funds to push CRT.
Well, isn't that what the C in COVID stands for? CRT? COVID relief theory? COVID race theory?
COVID release treasury.
COVID release trust fund, something like that. Yeah, I mean, Craig, tell me you're not surprised that Democrats would pilfer funds. Tell me it's a surprise to you.
Well, it's okay. So here's the deal. So in there, it did provide money for quote unquote implicit bias or anti-racism training. That was part of the funding.
Right.
So they didn't necessarily. My question is more, and I look back to Congress, what was this doing in the bill?
Well, we could slip it in there. That way we can let the constituent or let those local governments do what they want with it.
Right.
If I write 5,000 pages worth of stuff, who's going to read it all?
Well, most aren't going to read it all. And that's why there were many Republicans who had issues with it and didn't want to support it. But Mike, I was just talking about how, in many cases, now most of this is being spent on, it's not being done in the classroom, but it's being done to train staff. And I was talking about the experience that I had where I was assured that this stuff wasn't in there, that there was no critical race theory in there. But what they're doing is they're piecemealing it. So there's aspects of it. They're not teaching it wholeheartedly there, but it's piecemeal stuff of critical race theory that's being taught. And anyway, the next step is they're going to try and push it into the classroom.
Yep. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And they will, because look, now they're getting federal funding for it.
Well, exactly. Hey, since we missed you during some of it, I wanted to go back just a little bit and hit up some of these other ones. Wanted to get your thoughts on, first of all, the Mark Meadows messages. I don't know if you had a chance to check that one out. The regard from Sean Hannity.
Give me Meadows' messages again.
So
I know I saw
basically-
Hannity was involved.
Well, in essence, what they're doing with the January 6th committee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're basically looking for stuff to embarrass people. And they think the tweets between Mark Meadows and Sean Hannity are embarrassing Sean Hannity. And I'm like, no, it shows exactly what he said, that when he supported the president, he believed that there's problems with the election. He still believed there were problems with the election, but believed that his lawyers were off on a wrong track. And hey, don't act like idiot lunatics.
No, yeah, you're right. And it just, look, it shows who he is. And he's not afraid to show you who he is. It's just, they think they got the gotcha moment, the aha. And he's like, yeah, everybody knows me here, right? I've already said that stuff. So what's the big deal?
Exactly. And then there was the city of Santa Clarita voted to recall the George Soros appointed or elected district attorney there in Los Angeles. A city voted to support his recall.
Yep. Oh, Gascon. Let's be clear so people understand this, right? Santa Clarita is a city in Los Angeles County.
Yes.
It's not the city of Los Angeles, but it's a city in Los Angeles County, and he is the district attorney for the county. So that's why you have this odd name city saying that they support removing him, because they're in the same jurisdiction. They're
Yes,
part of his,
there are
his
many
realm.
cities in Los Angeles County. And like I was saying when I was talking what I said, the thing is that it does no good. They have their own police force and all that. It does no good for them to arrest people if the district attorney who's going to be prosecuting all the crimes is not actually going to prosecute them.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what's happening here.
All right. This last one we could probably talk about, the parting shot. We could talk about for a while. This pretty much is an example of many Democrats that I know. So Elon Musk tweeted this out. And if you look at it, it's got, hold on, wait, let me zoom it in. Let me zoom that in just a wee bit so you can see it a little bit better. All right. There we go. Okay, so now we'll zoom it in a little bit. All right, so what you're looking at here is a timeline, 2008, right? It's got little stick figures. For those of you who are just listening, it's got the right on the far right. It's got the little line in the center, and then it's got this little stick figure. It says me. That I guess that's supposed to be Elon there, and then it's got the left. He's like he says his fellow liberal standing on the left, and then in 2012, the right is pretty much still in the same place. The center, by the way, Elon is still in the same place, but the line for the center has moved further to the right. Or rather, the what is considered left has stretched out. And you see this other stick figure, the fellow liberal running far to the left, right?
The right and the center have remained in place.
Yes.
The left continues to go to the left. So what's happened is those that were near the center have passed over the center because the left continues to go further left.
Right. Well, but that in turn then winds up moving this anyway. But he's in the same place. And then you've got on the far left, then at the bottom one to 2021, you've got the right in the same place. You've got Elon, who's now on the right. He's to the right of center, although he has not moved.
Correct.
And you've got the far left standing way out there calling Elon a racist or a bigot.
Yep.
And you've got the right laughing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep,
But is
absolutely
that
right.
or is that not pretty much how it's worked? I mean,
It has. It has. The left has gotten so far left that those that used to be near the center are now on the right. That's what's exactly what's going on.
well, and what's even more amazing is watching them defend the left. I just that's the thing that is most amazing to me. I expect the whack jobs to be whack jobs, right? But I know they're whack jobs because the left encourages them to be. The left allows them to be. They don't say, "Look, yeah, I'm not with that guy."
Yeah. Yeah. Who brought this guy? Who got this? Who brought
Who
this?
brought that guy? No, don't get me wrong. Both parties have their fair share of wingnuts, right?
More so them.
Exactly, more so them. Trump,
Well, yeah, because they keep expanding.
yeah,
We
Trump did
like
bring,
that, like your
Trump,
chart just showed.
yeah,
Like
Trump
your chart
did
just
bring a
showed, we
few-
remain the same.
Yeah, Trump
Yeah,
did
but
bring
they keep
some
expanding.
eccentric personalities with him. He did.
Yes,
I'm not calling them wingnuts. I'm calling them eccentric personalities.
right, but
Different,
we
very vibrant.
elected the eccentric personalities.
Yeah,
That's
there
what
you
we
go.
wanted.
There you go. But it's amazing to me because, I mean, by all steps of imagination, he's probably the most one of the most moderate presidents we've ever had on a number of issues. He was pretty darn moderate. He was he was. I don't want to say he was pro-gay marriage, but he definitely was not anti-gay. He was definitely pro-life. He was strong pro-life. He had some questionable positions on some Second Amendment issues, but quite frankly, he was a guy who came in interested in making a deal. And if it weren't for the fact that the left decided to went all in on calling him a racist, he probably would have been willing to work some deals with them. But needless to say, that didn't happen. All right, folks. Well, hey, looks like we lost Mikey again, but it doesn't matter because now we are at the end of the show. Before we go, I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, Guerrilla Machining, Grid Defense, and the California Republican Assembly. Folks, do me a favor, visit their websites. The links are in the description of this video. Visit them. If you like what you see, kick them down a few dollars, buy some product, become a member, or hey, buy a membership for someone you know in California. But the main thing is let them know that the guys over at The Rundown sent you over and told you about them. With that, we're going to wish you a good weekend. You folks have fun. Take care. Remember, tune in on Monday. Monday, fun day, gun day. Looking forward to having a good time with you. You guys take care.